Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you like what you see. If you do, please consider joining the family and subscribing to this YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to crochet this houndstooth cardigan. Now, if you watched my previous video, you will know that I already made a tutorial on how to crochet the houndstooth tank top. And in this video, it's going to be how to crochet the cardigan. But no problems, if you haven't watched that video, it's all good. You're still going to learn how to make the houndstooth stitch all from the beginning in this tutorial. So if you're interested, definitely stay tuned. Also, I would want to state that you watch this video to the end in case you want to make this for a different size, because it's only if you watch it to the end that you can get all the instructions that you need to be able to adjust this to fit your own size. So stay tuned. As for materials, you will need 2 different colors of yarn. I'm using a medium weight yarn and then a 4.5mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors. You would also need a measuring tape, a darning needle, and some stitch markers. Once you have all your materials together, you want to start by making a slip knot as usual, and we are starting on the first half of the front of the cardigan. So once you make your slip knots, we are going to make chains. If you do not know how to make chains, it's quite simple. All you do is to wrap your yarn around the hook and pull it out of the loop that is already on the hook. So wrap your yarn, pull out, wrap your yarn, pull out, and so on and so forth. And so for this first half of the front of the cardigan, we are going to chain 35. So we are making 35 chains. Once you have your chains done, you're going to skip the first stitch and make a single crochet into the next stitch, and continue making single crochets into all the stitches until the end. If you don't know how to make a single crochet, all you have to do is insert your hook into the stitch or the chain, and then you pull up a loop. Then you have 2 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. That's how simple it is to make a single crochet. And for this first row, we are making 34 single crochets. So at the end of your row, you have 34 single crochets. When you have the first row all done, all you want to do for the second row is to chain 1, turn your work, and then make 1 single crochet into that very first stitch, and then 1 single crochet also into the next stitch, 1 single crochet also into the third stitch, and continue making 1 single crochet into all the stitches until the end. So row 2 and row 3 are exactly the same with row 1. So you're just going to put 1 single crochet into all the stitches. At the end of row 3, you will still have the same number of stitches, which is 34 single crochets. On the 4th row, however, is where we are going to change things up and start our houndstooth pattern. So once you're done with the 3rd row, to start the 4th row now, I did not complete I didn't make my last single crochet here, and we're going to make that together. So insert your hook into that last stitch and then pull up a loop. But we're not going to complete that stitch yet. We're just going to leave it and then grab our second color, that contrasting color, and then we are going to be using that one to complete the stitch. Just like that. So now we have completed our first row. I just like to make a knot with the tail of my second color and the other part of the yarn just to secure the end. Make sure that nothing falls out, nothing falls off. And now for our row 5, we are just going to make one chain, and we're going to start working with that new color that we have just attached. So make one chain and turn your work. But we are not going to cut off the color we were working with before, but I'm still going to carry along that blue color in my work. And this is what we are going to do for each row. We're just going to continue to carry along the other color while working with the other one, whichever one it is for you. So for the first stitch, we're just going to make a single crochet into that first stitch, and then in the next stitch we are going to make a double crochet. Yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's a double crochet, followed by a single crochet and then a double crochet in the next stitch. So this is how the houndstooth stitch works. It is basically alternating between single crochets and double crochets until the end of the row. So just keep alternating between single crochet and double crochet until the end of that row. I'm at the end of the fourth row now, and then I'm going to show you how to make the fifth row. So at the end of the row, we are also going to change color. Our last stitch is going to be a double crochet, and this is going to be the same throughout your work. You must always end with a double crochet and start with a single crochet. So make a double crochet into that last stitch, but do not finish the double crochet. When you're on the last pass, just grab the other color and then use it to complete the double crochet, like so. Now for to start row 5, you're just going to make one chain and turn your work. Don't forget, we are still carrying along with us that other color. In that first stitch, which is a double crochet, we are going to make a single crochet on top of it. The next stitch should be a single crochet, but on top of that single crochet, we are going to make a double crochet. Yarn over and make your double crochet. The next stitch, which is a double crochet, on top of that we'll also make a single crochet. So as you can tell in this row, we are also alternating between single crochets and double crochets like we did for the previous row. It's just that where we see a single crochet, we make a double crochet on top of it, and wherever we see a double crochet, we make a single crochet on top of it. And so this is basically how you work the houndstooth pattern. Don't forget that each row you start with a single crochet and you end with a double crochet. So continue to work this pattern until the end, and we're actually going to do this until we have 35 rows. At the end of 35 rows, I'll be back to show you guys what to do. At the end of row 5 here, we are going to change color like we did before. And then now start working with that new color. So like I said before, we're just going to continue alternating colors and working the houndstooth pattern until we get to row 35. So I have about 21 rows all done here, and I just wanted you guys to show I just wanted to show you guys the progress at this point. and what the work is looking like. So you have an idea of what your cardigan should be looking like at this point. Also notice that the front and the back actually look different. On this side, one color is more obvious, and on the other side, the other color is more obvious. So just keep that in mind because this is very important while working on the second part of the work. Okay, so I'm back now and I have finished my 35 rows of the houndstooth pattern, and now we are going to work on the neck shaping, the shaping for the neck. So we are going to start making decreases on one side of the work. So for row 36 now, we are going to start by making chain 1 and then turn your work, and then we are going to make a decrease into those first 2 stitches. Now there's a way I do my houndstooth decrease and I have a tutorial on that. I'll put a link in the cards above. But if you do not know how to make a houndstooth decrease, you can just make a regular decrease, like a regular single crochet decrease or even a half double crochet decrease will do just fine. So go ahead and make your decrease and then continue to work the houndstooth pattern into the next stitch and the following stitch until you get to the end of your work. I'm just marking my stitch here so that I can easily identify it when I come back. So just like the way the houndstooth pattern works, wherever you see a single crochet, you make a double crochet. Wherever you see a double crochet, you make a single crochet. So now there's a single crochet there. There's a double crochet there, so we are going to make a single crochet into that, and then followed by a double crochet into the next stitch, and so on and so forth. So I'm at the end of row 36 here, and I've already changed colors. So chain 1 and turn your work to start row 37, and then make a single crochet into the first stitch, and then a double crochet into the next stitch. So there's no decrease on this side of the work. Just work your regular single crochets and double crochets until we get to the other side of the work, which is where we are going to make another decrease. So at the other side of the work here, I'm just going to take off that stitch marker and then make my decrease into the last 2 stitches there. And it is only on that side that we are going to be decreasing throughout this work, because that's the neck portion of our work. So we keep decreasing on one side until we get to row. We're going to decrease until we get to row 57. So we're going to make decrease until we get to row 57. At the end of row 57, yeah, I'll be back to show you guys what to do. I'm done with my decrease there, and I've changed color. Now just chain 1 and turn your work, and also start with a decrease at that point. Don't forget, we are decreasing only at this point until we get to row 57. So I'm starting with a decrease at that point there, yes, like that, and then go into my next stitch with a single crochet, since that is a double crochet there, followed by a double crochet the next stitch, and so on and so forth. So I'll be back to show you guys what I have when I've reached row 57 thereabouts. Alright guys, I'm back and I've finished my front half here. I finished my decreases. I decreased from row 35 down to row 56, and for row 57, 58 and 59 I just made single crochets with one color. So the total number of rows for the front is 59, and I ended up with 12 stitches at the top of my work, so just keep that in mind. But for the second half, it's quite different from the first half, okay? And I'm going to explain the reason for that later on. But for now, I'll advise that you just follow the instructions. So to decrease on this second half, now I've done my row 1 to row 34 the same way I did the front, the other half. But on row 35 now, where I start my decreases, I already started a houndstooth pattern from the beginning normally, and then I left my last 2 stitches to do my decrease. Okay, this is different from what we did on the other piece. So I'm in the last two stitches now, making my decrease. And then this is the side that we are going to be decreasing on. So I change color as I finish making my decrease, and then I'm going to turn my work and start with a decrease again on that side of the work. It might not look different from what we did before, but it is actually different. Row 35 for the other piece and row 35 for this piece is quite different. In the other one, row 35, you start with a decrease, but row 35 for this one, you end the row on a decrease. So chain 1, turn your work, and then carrying your yarn along with you, you're also going to make a decrease in the first 2 stitches here. So row 36 is starting with a decrease, but it will end without a decrease. After that, you just want to continue working the houndstooth pattern like we normally did, and from this point on, it's quite straightforward. Continue decreasing on one side until you get to row 57, which is the end of our decrease row, and then the last 3 rows, 50, 58, 57 to 59, is just single crochets into your stitches. And like I said, keep in mind the number of stitches that you end with. It must be the same for the front and the back. So I said I was going to explain to you why the 2 pieces are different. So it's because the houndstooth pattern gives a different look in the front and the back. So if you were to just make a second piece exactly like you made the first piece, you would be having 2 pieces that look exactly the same. And then when you flip it, they have to be opposite. Like they have to look opposite to each other, because when you flip it, you'll find that one side looks different from the other side. So if we just made 2 pieces like the first one, if we just follow the same pattern and made 2 pieces like the first one, we will be having 2 pieces that would face the same direction, and you won't be able to work with that. So that was why I changed the pattern for row 35. That's the beginning of the decrease row, so that your pieces would match. So continue making your second piece until you're done with it, and once you're done, just set that aside, and we'll work on the back. So for the back piece, just grab your yarn, your main color, and then make a chain of 73, and we're just going to make single crochets into 72 stitches for a total of 3 rows, like we did for the front, for the bottom of the work. So here I'm going to chain 73, skip 1 chain, make a single crochet into my 72 stitches, and then repeat that for row 2 and for row 3. I have my 3 rows all done here. I didn't work in my last stitch because that is where I'm going to be changing color, to be inserting my new color. So I'm going to grab my second color. So as I insert my hook, pull up a loop, I won't complete my single crochet. Instead, I would complete it with my new color, just like that. Chain 1, turn your work, and now we're going to start working the houndstooth pattern, where you make a single crochet into the first stitch and then double crochet into the next stitch. This part should be quite straightforward if you've been following this tutorial. Just continue to alternate between single crochet and double crochet. For the houndstooth pattern, you must always begin with a single crochet and end on a double crochet. So once you get to the end of your work, do not complete your stitch. You change to your other color and then you use that to complete the stitch. Make one chain, put a single crochet, turn your work, make one chain, put a single crochet in the next stitch, and continue to work your houndstooth pattern till the end. So for this back piece, we're just going to make one large rectangle. So you're just going to continue like this until you get to row 54, and from row 55 to row 59 we would work on our neck opening. Okay, so this is my back piece. I've made my 54 rows, and then I've also made one side of the shoulder, but don't worry, I would walk you through how to do that. It's quite simple. So the first step is to mark the area for your neck opening. So I counted 17 stitches from the two sides, and I marked the 17th stitch on both sides. And that center, that wide center, is going to be for our neck. And don't worry if it seems wide, we're still going to work a ribbon around it, so your work would come out perfect. So if I flip my work here, you'll see that the shoulder side that I've worked is actually the right side, and that's because my row 54 ended on the right side, and so I started working the next row, which is the row for the shoulder, from the right. So I just started working from the right and walked towards the left until I got to my 17th stitch. I made a decrease into my 16th and my 17th stitch, and then I made a chain and turned my work and made a decrease again in the first two stitches, and then walked back towards the right. So I repeated this process of decreasing only at the center until I ended at row 59, and I ended up with 12 stitches at the top. But the last two rows at the top, which is blue, I did with just one color, and I made it in single crochets. Remember, we also did that for the front piece, but we were not decreasing when we did the front piece. But here I decreased until I had 12 stitches remaining, which was on my row 59. So for this other side, which looks like the right side but is actually the left side, we are going to be starting from that 17th stitch that we marked, okay? Not from the side, but from the 17th stitch, okay? And that's because row 54 ended on the right, and then row 55 is starting from the right and going towards the left. So we have to continue going like that until we get to the end. So as you can see here, I've removed that stitch marker. So I insert my yarn, and then I'm going to chain one and start with a decrease in those first two stitches. So I start by making a double crochet decrease because I'm starting on a single crochet stitch, and then continue with a single crochet stitch into the next stitch and finish off my decrease. And then I will just continue my houndstooth pattern until I get to the end, like so. So here is a double crochet followed by a single crochet, and I'm just going to continue alternating my stitches until I get to the end. So I'm sure it's straightforward by now. Once you get to the end, you just make one chain, change your color, turn your work, do not decrease on the end, just make your way back towards the center and then make your decrease, and they're just going to keep decreasing on the inside until you are left with 12 stitches at the top of your work, which will be row 59. So we are working from row 55 to row 59, decreasing on the inside. And do not forget that your last two rows, which is row 58 and 59, would just be single crochets, but you would also decrease. And if you wish, you can work it like my own, where I worked in just one color. That's row 58 and 59. Once you're done with the side, all you have to do is to make a chain and cut your yarn. Just fasten off, and we can work on attaching the front and the back pieces together. Now, if you've watched my previous videos on the Houndstooth pattern, you would know that the front and the back of the Houndstooth pattern is not usually the same. So at this point, you want to choose the part that you will use as your front and the part that you use as your back. Because to sew our pieces together, we're going to lay the right sides together. So choose your right sides and then lay them together, align the shoulders together, and then we're going to sew those 12 stitches at the top together. And this is why you want to have the same number of stitches at the top of your work, because you know we're going to sew each stitch to each stitch, and it has to line up perfectly for you to have neat work. So I'm lining up my front and back pieces here. So I'm lining up my front and back pieces here. You can either sew with your crochet hook like I did by working single crochets around the stitches, or you can use a darning needle to sew. Any one that you prefer would be fine. So I'm going to sew with my crochet hook, and the front seems slimmer than the back. That's the top of the stitches, but that's just because the front is shrunken since I did it a while ago. So I'm just going to sew that, and I'll be back to show you guys the next step. So once you've sewn your pieces together, all you want to do is set that aside, and we are going to start working on the sleeve. Guys, I tell you, when I started working on my sleeve, it felt like a whole new project. Honestly, I was so tired at this point, but it was totally worth it in the end. So for the sleeves, we're working from bottom to top like we did for our front and back pieces, and I'm starting with ribbing for the cuffs. To do that, make a slip knot and chain 13. Once you have your 13 chains, we are going to walk along those 13 chains with single crochets. So skip the first chain and make a single crochet into the second chain and into all the other chains till the end of the chain. You should end up with 12 single crochets, and this is your row 1 for your cuffs. Now row 2 and all the rows after that are quite different from row 1. So for row 2, chain 1, turn your work, and then we're going to walk into the back loops of our stitches. So insert your hook into that loop that is farthest from you and make a single crochet. Continue to make back loop single crochets into all the stitches until the end of the row. And row 2 is basically what you're going to repeat until you have 45 rows. If you're making this for a larger size, I'm making this for a size medium, but if you're making for a larger size, feel free, or a smaller size even, feel free to measure your wrist to know how long you want to make it, or to measure your cuffs around your wrist when you're making it, so that you would have the correct size for you. I finished making my 45 rows here, and like I said before, make sure to put this around your wrist and make sure that it fits. So now we're going to walk along the rows. We're going to walk along the rows of the ribbon. So just chain 1 and start to put 1 single crochet into the top of each row. 1 single crochet right there, and at the end of this row, this is row 1 of the body of the sleeve, at the end of this row 1 you should end up with 45 single crochets. Row 1 is all done. You should have 45 single crochets. Row 2 is quite different, so pay attention. Okay, so for row 2 we're actually going to do some kind of increase, because row 1 like this, we're having 45 stitches and we need an even number of stitches, and we also need to increase at the same time, because this is going to be wide enough to wrap around our wrist, sorry, our arm. So chain 1, turn your work, and into that very first stitch we're going to make 2 single crochets. So that's an increase, 1 and 2. So that's an increase in the first stitch. Into the next stitch after that, put 1 single crochet, and then into the third stitch put 2 single crochets. That's an increase. And in the next stitch put 1 single crochet. So if you pay attention here, you see that we are alternating between an increase and a regular single crochet. So 2 into 1 stitch, 1 into the next stitch, 2 into 1, 1 into the next stitch. After your second row, which is your increase row and your only increase row throughout the sleeve pattern, you might notice that your cuff is starting to form like an arc. That's completely normal. That's because of the increase that we just did. Next, we are going to start working the Houndstooth pattern until you reach the length of your sleeve. So I'm going to grab my second color here and use it to complete my last single crochet, so that I can change color and then start working my Houndstooth pattern. Yeah, just like that. So as we've been working the Houndstooth pattern before, you make 1 chain, turn your work, and then make 1 single crochet into the first stitch and a double crochet into the next stitch. Don't forget, for your Houndstooth pattern, you always start with a single crochet and end with a double crochet. And because of the increase that we did in our row 2, you should be left with 68 stitches, which is an even number of stitches. Okay, so you would end on a double crochet. So you're just going to continue this Houndstooth pattern for a total of 60 rows. Make sure you measure around your sleeve to make sure that the length is perfect for you, but for me 60 rows was perfect, but yours might be smaller or yours might be bigger. So this is my sleeves all done here. If you can notice that there's a little change in color on both sleeves, that's because I ran out of my peach color and I couldn't find that same color again, so I had to go with whatever was closest to it. So but it looks good, at the end. So the next thing is just to assemble our pieces. We're going to sew this to the sides of our body. So I start by laying that front and back piece that we already attached at the shoulders before, right side facing me. Then I would lay the sleeves next to it, such that the center stitch of the sleeve would align with the center of the shoulder, like that. So I marked that center stitch by counting total number of stitches and dividing by 2. Mine was 68 divided by 2. So I just marked in between my 34th and my 35th stitch. So now you just want to lay them right sides together. Just put the sleeve on top of the other piece and then sew them together. You're going to sew for this side and you're going to also sew for the other side. And voila, my pieces are all sewn. I usually use a single crochet to sew together, but you can use a darning needle if that's what you prefer. Next, we're just going to sew along the sides of the sleeves and along the side of the body. So just fold them together, right sides together, and then we're just going to sew, align it first. Make sure that the armpits are perfectly aligned. Yeah, so we're just going to sew along the side of the sleeves, down to the side of the body for both sides. So this is my cardigan all sewn together, and we're just going to walk around the front, the side for the buttonholes and the button itself. So I'm going to start from the bottom at the front. I'm going to insert my hook and start making single crochets all around, up to the neck at the back and down back to the front. Okay, so I just did that for 5 rows. On the third row, I created buttonholes on one side. I did 4 buttonholes because I knew I was going to do 4 buttons. And then to make buttonholes, you just make chains and then skip 2 stitches. If you make 3 chains, you skip 3 stitches, depending on how big you want your buttons to be. So on the 4th and the 5th row, single crochet into all the stitches. Actually, my 5th row was double crochet because I wanted it to be a little bit longer. So yeah, don't forget to put in your buttonholes. Okay, so this is my work. I've added all that 5 rows of single crochets, 1 last row of double crochet, and I've done my buttonholes. This last step of single crochet for me added a very beautiful finish to the front of the sweater. Yeah, and these are my buttonholes, and I'm going to attach my buttons now. I couldn't find one color of buttons. This is what I found. So yeah, I'm just going to use it like that. And once you've sewn your buttons, you're done. Alright guys, I'm done, and this is the finished work. It looks absolutely beautiful with those buttons, those multicolored buttons. All you have to do is to weave in all your loose ends. I have a lot hanging around here, so I will just do that, and yeah, you're basically done with the sweater. All you have to do is wear it and enjoy it. Bye guys.